We had another executive order the day before the White House summit that established a strategic reserve for Bitcoin and a stockpile for digital assets. I think I thought it was a very good signal and kind of following up on his promise to make the US a crypto capital of the world. I do think he struck a nice balance between allowing the government to hold these assets, but maybe not going as far as spending US taxpayer dollars right now to do so. But executive orders can be overturned in future administrations, et cetera. How are you thinking about this issue in Congress? Do you think that this is a viable piece of legislation that could come in and maybe make that executive order more permanent? Or do you think that Congress is going to be focused on the other issues, which we'll get into in a little bit?
The idea of the US government buying Bitcoin once seemed far-fetched, but that's no longer the case. Today, policymakers are not only recognizing Bitcoin's value, they're actively working to integrate it into national policy. With a strategic reserve now on the table, the big question becomes, what does this mean for the future of the US economy? If this reserve is formalized into law, it could mark a historic turning point in financial history.
It's light years away from where we started. The atmosphere has completely changed. I would say that a great thing that happened to us is we've got a new administration that, by the way, made some of the same mistakes as the last administration when they were there the first time. But Donald Trump figured this out as he was going along. I think people like Vivek Ramaswamy helped him see that there's a whole group of people in this country, not my generation, a whole group in this country who have grown up in the internet. And Vivek was talking to those people, and you got to give Donald Trump credit. That's what he changed. He started talking to those people, and now it's been so wonderful. When you ask me what's changed, he is keeping the promise that he made. He is opening this thing up. He's got Sachs doing a 180-day review. He's already done an executive order saying central bank digital currencies will be prohibited. Now we've got to put that in law. Just great stuff.
The shift in tone from policymakers is clear. Bitcoin is no longer dismissed as merely a speculative asset. Instead, it's being recognized as a legitimate financial instrument with long-term significance. For the first time, the administration is openly engaging with digital asset advocates, and the conversation is taking place at the highest levels of government. But this transformation goes beyond simple recognition. It's about actively integrating Bitcoin into the nation's broader financial strategy.
You heard from our Treasury Secretary, Bissent, and you heard from Howard Lutnick. Totally different approach to digital assets than anyone who preceded them. And then, to cap it off, which is probably the part that you saw, the president came in and sat down and reaffirmed his commitment to making sure that digital assets are at the forefront. In fact, he put a deadline on us, which I'm going to tell you we're going to try to honor. Actually, that's not who I am. We are going to honor it. The president says he wants stablecoin legislation and market structure legislation done by the August break, and that's going to be what we're going to do.
There's a growing sense of urgency in Washington. Bitcoin and digital assets are no longer being sidelined. They're now being prioritized. The administration isn't just offering lip service. It's actively setting deadlines to bring regulatory clarity. This marks a major shift from the past, when uncertainty kept institutions on the sidelines.
We don't want another surveillance tool for our government. I mean, I know everybody points to China all the time and says we don't want to be the CCP. Forget that. I just want to be the country that we all believe in, which is I get to make my decisions, which is why you guys excite me, because this decentralization literally empowers the individual once again to make the decisions that he or she feels are best for them. This central bank digital currency, unfortunately, it's a slippery slope. If you allow this to happen, you're telling me that the government will never use it to track what you're buying, track where you're going? Absolutely they will. Somebody will. And I got to give Donald Trump credit again, and I apologize, because this is not a partisan issue to me. As Krista knows, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. So I don't care what your political persuasion is. I just want leaders that understand the promise that this technology offers, this opportunity for our country, and we need to be the leaders, which we have done in the past, and we're going to do again. I give the president credit because I think it was after the primary in New Hampshire, he said, if I'm your president, there will not be a central bank digital currency. And that is definitely a promise that he's going to keep.
The rejection of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, marks a crucial shift in US policy. By eliminating the possibility of a government-controlled digital currency, the US is signaling its view that Bitcoin offers a more viable and secure alternative. This move aligns with the broader goal of financial decentralization, reinforcing the principle that individuals, not governments, should maintain control over their own assets.
Our job in Congress is to protect, I believe, the existing two-tier legacy financial system, but not at the expense of the digital asset world that we are now into. That goal in Congress should be to give the legacy system the ability to evolve into the 21st century. And by the way, if they don't want to, they can go the way of Sears Roebuck, which I bet a lot of the people watching don't even know who that is.
The financial world is rapidly evolving, and those who resist change risk being left behind. Congress is carefully balancing the need to protect the traditional financial system while embracing innovation. By integrating Bitcoin into this transition, lawmakers are helping ensure that the U.S. stays at the forefront of financial evolution.
Our job in Congress is to protect, I believe, the existing two-tier legacy financial system, but not at the expense of the digital asset world that we are now into. That goal in Congress should be to give the legacy system the ability to evolve into the 21st century. And by the way, if they don't want to, they can go the way of Sears Roebuck, which I bet a lot of the people watching don't even know who that is.
Once seen as a speculative gamble, Bitcoin is now rapidly gaining legitimacy. The US government's growing interest in accumulating Bitcoin signals a clear recognition of its value as a strategic asset, one that can sit alongside traditional reserves. The creation of a Bitcoin strategic reserve may mark the beginning of a much larger shift toward a financial system that extends beyond purely fiat-based structures. This is no longer a fringe movement. The US government is no longer ignoring Bitcoin. With policies actively moving forward to integrate digital assets into the financial system, we are witnessing a historic transformation. And it's not just about investment. This is about the future of money, sovereignty, and economic security. By rejecting central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and embracing decentralized assets like Bitcoin, the government is signaling that it sees decentralization as a foundational principle for the future. The question is no longer if Bitcoin will play a role in the global economy, but how big that role will be. If the US follows through and begins acquiring Bitcoin at scale, it could set a powerful precedent for other nations to follow. As Representative Emmer put it best, this is the future of 21st century finance.
For those of you that aren't in, you may want to consider getting involved because this is where we're going. This is 21st century finance.
So, what do you think? Is the US government genuinely preparing for a Bitcoin standard? Or is this just another political move? And if the government begins buying Bitcoin in large quantities, how do you think that will impact the market? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.